Hello, welcome back to Hammer the Backlog. I am Mick, I am the one who hammers the backlog. And look, a suspiciously empty table. That can mean only one thing. You're joining me for one of our famous Hammer the Backlog annual planning sessions. So this video is going to be the annual planning session for year 4, believe it or not, of the Hammer the Backlog project, my ongoing project to get all of my mostly Warhammer but some other tabletop gaming minis painted to a decent display standard before I get fired from the world of painting miniatures to a decent display standard. So, an empty table means only one thing: we're doing an annual planning session. So an annual planning session for people new to the Hammer the Backlog project. Every year at this time of year, the last year is done and dusted, all the targets have been achieved, and I get to have what I like to call Mix Christmas. Mix Christmas is my opportunity to go into my hoarded pile of 30 years of underappreciated miniatures, rummage through them, recapture what made me buy those miniatures in the first place. Every single miniature that I own, when I bought it, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Then the reality of having to spend weeks or months priming, building, painting, varnishing, collecting. Every single project I've ever started fizzled out until now. So I get to go back into that pile and I get to rummage through it and I get to have the joy of having new projects and exciting new things in front of me, even if they're projects that I abandoned 20 years ago. So let's throw over now to Outside Broadcast Mick for what I'm sure is going to be a scintillating rummage through some old boxes. Thank you very much, Inside Broadcast Mick. This is Outside Broadcast Mick reporting live from the laboratoire with what I hope will be a scintillating rummage through some boxes of old miniatures. But before I subject you to 5 minutes of the sounds of miniatures breaking as I look through them, please do bear in mind that the backlog has very shrunk over the last 3 years. In fact, it has shrunk by this much. Look at all those miniatures. Look at them all. So I'm going to rummage through some of these boxes now, and every time you hear a model squeaking and breaking, remember, I can fix it and I will fix it. This is my box of old stuff. Ignore that. We get the bloody World of Hobby Games brochure, and then we've got lots of old 40k, half abandoned projects, Dark Eldar, a lovely bottom. We've got some, again, more Dark Eldar, absolutely battered, half of Drazar. Oh, that's probably beyond saving. This box is a fabulous box of abandoned projects. We have in here, for example, plenty of High Elves. We've got some Dragon Princes. We've got some High Elf Infantry and War Machines. We've also got in here some bloody Space Marines, apparently. Who are they? Alright, in this box we've got Warhammer Conquest, the painted up and abandoned Ultramarines. The only problem we have here is that this collection is half old school Marines, non-Primaris, and half modern Primaris Marines. These don't match at all. Having said that, we've got a couple of interesting little fellas in here that might make a bit of an appearance. Similarly, this is the Death Guard side of Warhammer Conquest. Is that what it was called? Again, these are semi-painted. The only difference is these are an entirely new range, so there are no old models in here. They're all pretty modern. Then we have this thing, the last one of these that I've kept. A lot of this is painted, so we'll ignore that for the moment. That was, what was that called? Dark Vengeance from a couple of years ago. Dark Vengeance. But then on the bottom, we have Space Marines. We have the Space Marine side of the Dark Vengeance box set. Now you can see I kitbashed some of these to be Dark Eldar, but I'm starting to get some ideas about these. Oh my god, those mold lines. Bloody hell. This one is the big old box of sprues, including the Orcs side of Assault on Black Reach. Most of it, I hope, if not all of it. But also tons and tons of Old Empire. We've got the State Troopers kit. We've got the old State Troopers kit. We've got some bits and pieces of old Space Marine kits in here. That's probably the biggest and the scariest box. And then finally, this box, which has some more various bits and pieces, like a squad of bloodletters still in a baggie, but it also has the models that are too big to store anywhere else, like modern Dark Eldar in slightly bad repair, and also large parts of a High Elf army. Bloody hell. That was a big job. That's it from me, Inside Broadcast Mick. I hope you enjoyed that scintillating rummage through some boxes of old miniatures. I'll see you in a year. Thank you very much, Outside Broadcast Mick, for that scintillating rummage through some old boxes. So here we are. These are the projects. These are what we're going to be doing. These are the next 4 quarters, the next year of the Hammer the Backlog project. Let's take a look at what I've narrowed it down to from that collection. So 4 trays in front of me. Regular viewers will know that 4 trays mean 4 quarters. The project could be mixed around, but I like to have a mix of fantasy and sci-fi. I like to have a range of old and new, retro and modern. I like to have variety on my trays. Remembering that when we're setting annual targets, we have to set our annual targets first and then break it down quarter by quarter. So the first annual target is to get the penultimate box set that I own, 2008's Assault on Black Reach, painted, photographed and online. So Assault on Black Reach is a classic Warhammer 5th edition starter set featuring Space Marines versus Orcs. I bought this set. I don't remember when I bought it, but obviously when I bought it I was pretty excited about it, and it got dumped into the boxes and abandoned like everything else. It looks to me, and I have the faintest memories of, that the Space Marines were going to be Dark Angels at some stage. I possibly bought this just before Dark Imperium or Dark Vengeance came out, thinking that I could combine 2 starter sets to make a cool Dark Angels force. Orcs, on the other hand, I've never had a particularly strong interest in Orcs, which is going to be a bit of a problem for the year. But a box set is a box set, and I have to remember the joy of getting these box sets, remembering the excitement of going to the shop and picking this up, ripping it out of the package and hastily assembling it all. I don't have any more fantasy box sets, but what I do have is a very particular set of skills that makes me a nightmare for people like you. But what I also have is two mistakes. I made 2 mistakes, let's be honest. When the new High Elves came out with the 8th edition of Warhammer Fantasy, I didn't just get 2 sets of the starter set from the Island of Blood. I also went on a spending spree and bought an entire probably 3,000 point High Elf army. And regular viewers of Hammer the Backlog will also know that I did exactly the same stupid ass thing when the Uniforms and Heraldry of the Empire book came out. They released this book around 7th or 8th edition Warhammer, and it's full of inspiration for cool, individual, unique units and armies of Empire soldiers. And being an idiot, I bought them all and made them. So, our fantasy targets are to get some, not all, but some of my 7th or 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Empire army painted, photographed and online, and to get some, not all, of my High Elf 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy army painted, photographed and online. 4 trays in front of me here. Let's take a look at each tray for a couple of minutes, break down what's on the tray and what needs to be done. Let's start with sci-fi. So we have the Space Marines. The Space Marines are from mostly the starter set, the Assault on Blackreach starter set. We have 10 tactical Marines, including a Sergeant Flamer and what's that called? Missile launcher. We also have the commander. I guess he's a captain, a Space Marine captain. We have 5 Terminators. These Terminators, it looks like I bought some Dark Angels upgrade sprues and added them here. So some of their equipment is Dark Angels equipment. And the final model from the Assault on Blackreach set is the Dreadnought. Now, unfortunately, 10 tactical Marines, 5 Terminators, a captain and a Dreadnought do not make a full quarter. And I didn't really know what to do with the rest of the time that will be left in this quarter. So I thought to myself, why not finish off a 2008 Space Marine army? So I have 5 half-painted plastic scouts here who were on their way to being Ultramarines. I also have an eBay Rescue Librarian from 2008, who's the only pewter model on this tray. And I have this Predator tank, which was built for my Black Legion Chaos Space Marines, but is going to be reconsecrated back to an original Space Marine tank. On the other tray, we have the Orcs from Assault on Blackreach. There are a lot more of these than there are Space Marines. We've got 2 units of 10 boys. Each of these boys would be 1 point each, so that's 20 Hammer the Backlog points. That's, 4 weeks worth of painting. We have 5 Knobs, who are the elite of the Orcs. They would probably be 2 Hammer the Backlog points each, so we're up to 30 Hammer the Backlog points. We have the Space Orc War Boss, I guess, a really famous and really impressive model that would be an easy 5 points worth of painting. So we're looking at 35 points, and then 3 Death Copters, these hilarious orc flying abominations that are easily going to take a week each. So that's another 15 points, which brings us up to about 50 Hammer the Backlog points, or 10 weeks worth of painting on this tray. Let's take a look at the Empire tray next. As I said, I impulse bought this Empire army in about 2008 and built them all as unique and exciting units. So we have, first of all, straight out of the box sets, the oldest models on here probably, we have these late 90s Empire Knights, and I've built them as Reichsguard Knights. They're going to be the classic silver and red paint scheme. I also have an Empire Great Cannon with 2 crew members. I think there are supposed to be 3, so I might have to find the 3rd fella. We have a half-painted Empire Warrior Priest here. And then on to the unique and exciting units. First, we have 10 converted Middenland swordsmen, kind of. These are the Swords of Ulfric, I think is the name of the unit from the Empire book. They're a kind of kind of militia swordsmen sort of thing with a slight Nordic theme to them. Lots of wolf pelts and blonde fellas and fellas with red beards. They'll be good fun to paint. The next unit here is the Firelocks of Verlangen. They are 10 Empire sharpshooters from Ostland. And then in the back row here, we have the final unit, another 10 swordsmen or militia. These are the Stir River Patrol. They have funky yellow tabards and the symbol of a fish on a blue background. And the final tray is the High Elf tray. Again, this is less than half of the remaining High Elves, but we have to make inroads at some point. First of all, I have 10 more Seaguard, Lothern Seaguard. I did a unit of 10, including full command, for last year. So these will be added to the back ranks of that unit. I also have a unit of 10 Phoenix Guard here. These are highly, highly complicated models with lovely flowing robes and lots of individual scale mail detail. They'll still be 1 point each, 1 Hammer the Backlog point each, but there'll be a lot of work to get done in a short time. In the back here, we have 5 Dragon Princes, easily the most intricate models on this whole series of trays. The most intricate models for the whole year. They're going to be pretty tough to paint in a short time. They'll probably take me a month to do that unit of 5. Then I have 5 Shadow Warriors at the front. I definitely have another sprue of them somewhere, but I couldn't dig them out. And to be honest, with the Dragon Princes being so intricate, it will be nice to have a unit of 5 of these relatively simple models to paint rather than another 10. And then we have the High Elf Repeater Bolt Thrower with 2 crew. And finally on the High Elf tray, we have a metal model. We have the High Elf Prince. This is the same prince from last year, the guy who was on the Griffin, the guy from the Island of Blood starter set, but he's on foot. Let's not imagine that his poor Griffin has been killed, that he's found himself on foot. He's gone to live on the farm. He's totally fine. So they are our annual painting targets. What about annual meta targets? Hammer the Backlog originally grew out of the fact that the company I work with used a new system called the Entrepreneurial Operating System to help improve efficiency and growth. And that really spoke to me about project management and really helped me focus on dividing things into yearly targets, into quarters, then into weekly scorecards. Unfortunately, the piece of software that I've been using for the last 3 years, Instant Agency Tools, is now sunsetting and isn't going to be available anymore. So the meta target for this year is for me to either find, develop, collaborate, create something that lets me manage the Hammer the Backlog project efficiently. It could be as simple as creating integrated Google Sheets templates. Maybe I'll use Notion. Maybe I'll try and see if I can make an app. I don't know now, but by the end of the year, I want to have a replacement for Instant Agency Tools, which has been my main source of organization for this project. So those are the annual targets. We have 3 painting targets to get the Assault on Blackreach set painted, photographed online, to get the Empire Army painted, photographed and online, and to get the High Elf Army painted and photographed and online. We have 1 meta target to replace Instant Agency Tools with something bespoke and unique to Hammer the Backlog. So that's the plan for year 4. Now we have to decide, what am I going to do in quarter 1? What are the painting targets for quarter 1 of year 4 going to be? I have 4 trays in front of me. This is usually pretty simple, to be honest, because usually at this stage of the year, I'm itching to get started on one of the 4 trays, and I really know which one I'm going to pick before this video is made. But this year, the High Elves, the Empire, the Space Marine, they're all, the Orcs, that could be a problem. I don't want to leave them till last and run out of motivation, but I've never really been super into Orcs, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. But the Empire, the high elves, they're both making comebacks in the old world. They're both popular at the moment. I love both sets of models. The Empire really speaks to me because they're individual unique units, whereas with the elves I love the uniformity, the stoicism, the upright postures marching confidently forward. But having said all of that, the thing that most excited me this year, to my surprise as much as anyone else's, was to get my Assault on Blackreach Space Marines, including some extras, painted, photographed and online. So I'm not actually going to call this quarterly target the Assault on Blackreach Space Marines, because realistically only about half of this tray is the Assault on Blackreach Space Marines. So what I am going to do is take a little bit of inspiration from the fact that I have a random ragtag collection of weirdo Marines. I've got the tacticals from Assault on Blackreach. I've got an eBay rescue librarian. I've got some scouts who started life as ultramarines. I've got a chaos tank which I'm going to repurpose, and I've got some terminators with some suspiciously Dark Angels looking bits of equipment. So the target for quarter one of year 4 is going to be to get my 2008 Blood Ravens Space Marine Army painted, photographed and online. The Dawn of War series of video games were one of my favorite ever video games, not just in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, but in any fictional universe. I bought a PC in 2005 specifically to play Dawn of War, the first one. The Blood Ravens, okay, it's not really in universe, but they're known to be magpies. They're known to acquire power swords from the Dark Angels, shoulder pads from the Ultramarines. They're a chapter who's not afraid to take and reconsecrate a Chaos Space Marine tank. And of course, they're a chapter that's famous for their proliferation of librarians. And I have a lovely eBay Rescue 2008 librarian here. So what better chapter for me than the Blood Ravens? Let's take a quick look at it. The Space Marine Tactical Marines are going to be 1 Hammer the Backlog point each. That's 10 Hammer the Backlog points. The Terminators will be 2 each, so that's another 10, giving us 20 points. The Scouts will be 1 point each, so we're up to 25 Hammer the Backlog points. The Captain and Librarian will be 5 points each, so now we're at 35 Hammer the Backlog points. The Dreadnought will be 10 points, that's 45 Hammer the Backlog points, and that leaves me 15 Hammer the Backlog points, or 3 weeks to work on the tank. This will be the first tank I've painted in a long time. The first tank I've painted since my Black Legion Rhinos, I think, in the early 2000s. So I don't know how long that's going to take. I don't know how to paint tanks. If anyone has any tips, just send them before I sweat every last drop of moisture out of my body panicking about painting a tank. So that's it. That is the video. Year 4 is ready to roll. We have an overall painting target and we have quarter 1's target ready to go. I hope you'll be able to follow along with me over the next few weeks and months. If you would like to follow along, Hammer the Backlog is a weekly blog at www.hammerthebacklog.com. I update there every week with the progress on the project, including this week's models, any issues that I come across, and any progress that I make. On the other hand, if you just want to see pretty pictures, then Hammer the Backlog is also on Instagram, Threads, X and Blue Sky, so you can follow along at any of those places. I don't really talk about this project management stuff there, I just post the pretty pictures. Thank you very much for watching this. Thank you for all of the support over the last 3 years of what has been a shockingly successful project for me. I am super excited to get started on year 4. Every single one of these trays, except the bloody orcs, is really, really exciting for me and I cannot wait to get started. Now is the best time for you to jump on board if you're doing a similar thing, if you've had time to think about what projects did I abandon, what joy can I re-find in my old models. now is the perfect time to commit to a project. Stick it in the comments below saying what you're going to paint and how long you're going to take. Thanks for watching this. You are the best eggs. I'm going to make like the blood ravens and come to your house and steal your stuff. Oh, is that can I get in trouble for that? No, I'm not going to do it. See you though. Or will I? I won't.